Hi everyone, my name is Lakshmi. I am one of the Microsoft MVPs in the data platform, and also I'm a very proud to say this that I was one of the finalists of the Power BI Data Viz World Championship that took place. And thank you. And I am a data visualization enthusiast. I love creating visuals, playing around with data. And when ZoomCharts reached out to me that they want a discussion about the reports, I was so happy because this is something where even I will get to learn. Like I was mentioned, the data set was the same, and you see so much creativity from each report. So kudos on that. And yeah, that's pretty much about me.
Short and sweet. What else? There's always an option to go the long route, right? But nah, why? Keep it short and simple.
Yes.
But yeah, so for those of you who have been here before, you already how the show is going to be run. So what today is going to be all about is we're going to be going through the top 5 submissions for this month's challenge. We're going to be going through these reports, of course, in a randomized order, so you don't know exactly who the winner is. Otherwise, where's the fun in that, right? But whilst we're going through these, feel free to also give your feedback on the reports that you're seeing. What is that you liked about it? Do you think this is going to be the winner? We're always also keen on just hearing from the community on how you're feeling about this, right? So tell us what you feel about the reports, how you feel about the challenges in general, because every single feedback allows us to understand, okay, are we doing things still correctly, right? Are you getting tired of this approach? Should we change something up? And if you don't tell us, well, the consensus is everything's good, keep on going. But just be sure to make your voice heard, right? That's why the feedback is there. That's why you tell us how you feel about all of these things. And hey to everyone. But the most important part about going through these, of course, is at the very end we're going to be announcing who the winner is. So in overall, our opinion, how who we think this one is going to take the cake home, basically, right? And
Yeah.
afterwards, of course, there's going to be a Q&A session. So going through these reports, if there's something interesting that you see, if you want us to basically, chip in and tell us what our thoughts about certain topics are, you're more than welcome to ask those questions in the comments, right? The main thing you have to remember about all of these events always is this is a community event. So you're more than welcome to ask the questions. It doesn't matter if you think it's a very simple question. It doesn't matter if you think it's a more complex question. If we can handle it, we'll try to answer it. If it's something that we read and we're like, I need to think about it first, well, at least we're going to give you that answer, right?
Yes.
Because as much as I would love to answer everything straight away, sometimes it's not that simple. Sometimes you have to kind of play around with it and be like, you know what? Now I can answer it. But 10 minutes
Hmm.
ago, no idea. But yeah, going through the reports, just having a fun with this. And if you guys have anything to say about this, feel free to do so. All right, Lakshmi, you ready?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's go. Sharing my screen, finding the right one, right? You know the jiggles. All right, let's see. Going live. There we go. All right, so as you can already see, the first submission that has gotten itself into the top 5 comes from Chakradhar Montana. So congratulations to you. Now let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. So for this one, Lakshmi, do you want to take the first hit at it?
Yes, I love it because purple is my favorite color. And
There
I
we go.
was like, wow, purple. uh, just two words. It's very simple and clean layout. Something which I really like here is proper usage of titles and subtitles. So I am a big fan of subtitles. So any report you see, you will my visuals do have subtitles because I feel subtitles are a great way to give extra information about what the visual is.
Mhm.
Over to you, Ivis. Your thoughts.
Absolutely. The one thing though that I usually say about the subtitles is if your visual is going to be something that is going to have a lot of text or a lot of categories, right? The only little thing that I usually recommend is you have an option to have a separator, sort of a line here or something like that. You don't have to make it very prominent, black or something, right, straight away, but
Hmm.
something that just kind of cuts off the line and makes it clear.
Hmm.
Okay, this is where the visual starts. This is where the title and the subtitle is. Other than that, I completely agree. The one of the main reasons why I love subtitles is because we all know titles are a mandatory thing nowadays, basically, right? Sure, some cases, if it's more sort of a, let's say, a representation material or something, the titles are not that important. But if it's going to be an analytical report, you're going to have titles. And the
Hmm.
subtitles is the little part that allows you to explain to the user what the chart is really about, right? Or what is
Yes.
the main thing I'm supposed to look here. Because if I'm just going ahead and saying satisfaction score versus satisfaction score versus satisfaction factor, cool. What about it? So those subtitles just help you to navigate the user, right? That's my main point here. What else about this one is I totally agree with you that I like the simplicity of it. And as much as I also like advanced reports, you
Hmm.
do get tired of them at some point, right? So simplicity, and most of the times, is actually a very key point in every single report. The
Yes.
simpler you make the report, the easier it is to navigate, the more
Hmm.
adaptation you're going to see from the audience. And this is what
Yes.
we've experimented with as well. As much as you would like to create a very detailed, very advanced analytical dashboard, right? Unless the team is familiar with the environment, it's going to have a lot of pushback because
Yes.
what they're used to is most likely typical Excel files, spreadsheets, very basic charts. And now suddenly you're just pushing something completely different on them. Take it slow, right? Keep it simple at first, and then once they say, hey, but can we get more advanced or more detailed views? Sure, we can definitely do that, but create the initial sort of feeling for them that they're welcome here, right? You're not too pushing everything straight away on them, basically. So
Yes.
that's one thing. What else? Regarding the report, the one thing that I liked is that you have two different approaches when it comes to filtering. I
Hmm.
do have the possibility, of course, to filter through the visuals, which I like.
Yes.
I have the possibility to also have this little filter menu. I know
Hmm.
that people's opinion basically about the filter panels is usually divided, right? It's similar to be having a donut chart. It either works or it doesn't. It is a tricky thing. I agree with it. But the one thing that allows you to do is to keep the report clean.
Mm.
You're
Yes.
utilizing the space only when necessary.
Hmm.
So I can open it up, apply the filters, and close it, and so forth. And the one thing that I'm always gonna emphasize and say thank you to every single report that does this, you have a reset button. Trust me,
Yes.
I'm not the only one who's gonna say thank you about it. It doesn't matter how advanced of a user you are within Power BI, it's so easy to get lost within the visuals, especially if you have things like filter panels, you have your visuals who cross filter each other as well. It's so easy to just misclick something and suddenly be like, this doesn't seem right. Something's missing here.
Mhm.
But yeah, definitely. This view, I really like it. I like the simplicity of it. But like I said, for the
Yes.
subtitles, I would probably just have a little bit of a divider just to kind
Hmm.
of keep it cleaner. Other than that, I think it's very well made. And if you go for the second analysis as well, keeping it very consistent in a layout form as well, so I kind of know what to expect. It's not switching too much. Having the drill down capabilities is good, allows me for detailed analysis as well. Utilizing the donut charts in a proper way, where you don't have 50 different slices, but only just a few of them, works fine. Other than that, not much really to add from my side. Anything else from your side, Lakshmi?
Yes. So one thing I would really appreciate is, could you just go and click the help guide that he's included,
Help
the
guide.
eye
Yep.
icon? Yes. I really like this. Very simple, just tells like this is where you can use, this is the filter place, this is the reset option, use these buttons for navigating. I like the addition of this. And one thing I really appreciate, you can close the guide, is the proper usage of tool tips and the data labels. So the page navigations, although they are icons, so my personal opinion, even though there are icons, I prefer adding text to it too. But looks like tooltips have been added. That's a great way of going with it. Also, since I mentioned the data labels, so one
Hmm.
common mistake that I see people do is when they have age groups. So this is, I'm talking about the satisfaction score versus age group visual. So what happens is people immediately create bins. They have age groups, but they forget to sort it out. So what they do is they sort it according to the satisfaction score instead of age group. But here I see that he has sorted it using age group, and that's like attention to detail, and kudos on that.
Yeah, definitely. Because
Yes.
it's so easy to miss this, right? What you do automatically is just create a group, put it on the x-axis, put a value on top of it. And because these are not necessarily numbers, this is going to be treated as text. So text is
Right.
always going to be sorted alphabetically or based on a value. So either way, you would see that the age groups are completely off. One sort of a golden rule that you can always apply: if it's something that has any chronological order, try to
Hmm.
sort by that. The reason
Yes.
for that is going to be familiarity. People read stuff in the same manner as, for example, the one also golden rule is, of course, it depends on the region where you're from. I know it might differ from different countries, but for most of the world, the Z principle works very well. What I mean by this is, think about it as you're reading the book, right? You start off with the top left corner, and now you're going in rows, basically.
Hmm.
The same manner goes with age groups. When I'm looking at age groups, the familiarity in my mind says, okay, I'm starting with the lowest or the highest, but I'm going in a one direction. You cannot sort those in just random orders where suddenly this is 25 to 29, now there's suddenly 40 to 50, then it's 30 to 95. I'm just looking at it and be like, give me a sec. I guess it's based on the value, so try to avoid any sort of questions that they have to ask themselves. And
Yes.
a great example on how to test it out as well is, whenever you're developing things, trust me, you're gonna not notice them because you know what you're doing with it.
Hmm.
Always give your reports to somebody who has no idea what exactly he's supposed to be looking at, just
Hmm.
because it allows you to kind of look into their mindset and think and notice stuff that they see first, right? They're going to click on stuff, they're going to try to break stuff, which is what you as a report developer actually want. I know it seems kind of counterintuitive, but the more they break it, the more options you have of fixing it and making sure that for the customer, for example, or the management that asks you for the report, you're creating the best possible option of it, right? Always play around with it. But yeah, overall, I feel this is a very good report. It's clean and
Yes.
simple, it's not too overly complicated.
Hmm.
So, from my side, kudos to you for making this one.
Yes.
And yeah, like you mentioned, the little detail for the tooltips, mm, very good.
Yes.
Yeah, even these ones. Everything has been
Hmm.
tooltip. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. So that's it for this report. So yeah, guys, in the comments as well, if you have some opinion, let us know about it. We're more than happy to look into it as well. So the next report that has gotten itself into the top five comes
Hmm.
from Crystal Andrade. So congratulations, Crystal. This is the second top five, by the way, she's gotten into in the same month. So determination, you'll very
Good.
good. Let's open up and see what we do about this. So first of all, I like the color scheme. I
Hmm.
like the fact that instead of going for sort of very bright colors or very nuanced colors, you're keeping more pastel tones, right? To keep it more simple. The one thing though that I would probably play around with a bit more is, again, and this might be just me, is this yellow color, and I can give you a reason why. Whenever it comes to different colors, the one thing you have to always take into consideration is that not everyone's screen settings are going to be the same.
Hmm.
Somebody might have it a little bit more brighter, somebody's have a bit more dimmed version of it. So some colors might sort of disappear on your view, right? Everyone else might be looking and be like, oh yeah, it's very distinguishable. For some people, it's be like, it's kind of close. So what I usually try to avoid are very bright colors or very, very light colors, I'd say, just
Hmm.
because of that fact. Other than that, I like that it's very simple, and I like that each category has its own meaning in a way, right? The same informational overlay, very
Yes.
good. And I like that the one part is that instead of just creating a new page, basically, you're creating a very simple overlay only for the main part,
Hmm.
for the
Yes.
charting part, because everything else is going to be kept the same. So
Yeah.
that's a very nice touch. When I come to the visuals, I can drill down, I can play around with the filtering capabilities and everything. The speed of things, don't pay attention. It's Tuesday. My PC decided to work a little bit slower, and I can see I also haven't plugged it in, so that is also taken into consideration. But it works, right? It cross filters the information, everything is visible, so that's a good touch for it.
Hmm.
For the menu, the one thing that threw me off a little bit was this menu button, and I'll tell you why. it felt like it's gonna be an actionable item.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I felt like it's maybe gonna expand or collapse on this, but it didn't do anything, right?
Hmm.
It's not a major flaw, but when it comes to these sort of design elements that look like a button and feel like a button, you most likely want to make it a button, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, just keep the title, for example, again, right menu, create some sort of a little line similar to this one that you can see it's right here, but I would extend it a bit more and just make it look, this menu look a little bit less like a button. Other than that, I think it works great because the title's there, the secondary title as well, explaining the purpose of the report. I love this part, to be fair, right? It seems
Same here.
very clean.
Actually, just like to add something here,
Sure.
the left pane of Crystal's report is what caught my eye, especially the purpose section that she has. And Crystal, if you're here, I am going to copy this purpose section in my future reports, because I initially thought the purpose is just going to explain the entire report. Later, when I was navigating through pages, I realized it changes according to pages. So I
Yeah.
love that idea. So great job on that. One suggestion here, what I would say, and Evis, feel free to jump in, is
Hmm.
the sizing, the text sizing. I felt was a little bit smaller compared to the text of the on the right side. So, for example, take the title, the text of the titles or the access labels. I
Hmm.
found there was a little disconnect. The left pane size could have been a little bigger. I mean, that's my opinion.
Yeah, that's the one thing, right? You try to always find sort of a good ratio between things. Sorry about
Hmm.
that. Had to connect my power supply and it decided to jump around as always.
Hmm.
But yeah, I would probably make this a little bit smaller. The reason for
Hmm.
this is to kind of create a more universal feeling between this section and this section. Because
Hmm.
right now it feels that this is just not even a lot, maybe like 1 or 2 points of the font
Yes.
size. It's just a very slight deviation from it. But yeah, that's the one thing. The other thing is I know, and we talked about this as well, Lakshmi. You mentioned this. It's a very small little detail, but whenever you have the data, I fully understand that it might not always be possible because you never can figure out all the edge cases. But the initial view should never have cutoff values.
Hmm.
I fully understand that it's not always possible for every single edge case to account for every variable. That's fine, but at least the initial view should never have this.
Yes.
So again, for these ones, if you would probably lower,
Iris, I can't hear you.
can you hear me now, guys?
Yes, perfect.
There we go.
Mhm.
All right, so behavioral insights. If we go here as well, love the little touch on how this has been created, and I actually love this part as well.
Oh, yes.
The only tricky part about this is I would probably hide the visual headers.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's purely from creating a lot of reports. I can guarantee you that there's going to be somebody asking, what are these things? Why are they here? And everything like that. It's
Yes.
again, it's not a major issue. You can fix it very simply. You go to the report, you go to the formatting options, visual header or visual header
Header
icon.
icons.
There we go. They change from time to time. Yeah. So, but disable them for all the elements where you don't need this.
Yes.
Because from a user perspective, anything that pops up, anything that shows, they're just inclined to click on things. And
Hmm.
if it's not something that they need to click on, get rid of every single element that kind of forces them to go somewhere else, right?
Yes.
But I love the little touch here because what it allows me to do is not only segregated by groups, which is the primary reason why I would probably want to see this, but it also allows me to very quickly understand how much of a split is there between these two. So
Hmm.
I think it's a very nice touch. For the map visual, that's all good. For the ribbon chart, I'd say it works pretty well. The only tricky part about a ribbon chart is, for example, but it's just the way on how ribbon charts are. You can see, for example, in cases where we suddenly don't have any values, from a
Hmm.
visual perspective, it seems like it kind of gets cut off.
Hmm.
So, from my experience, what's this is gonna cause is for the end users to start asking questions: Is something missing here,
Hmm.
or is you know, it's not a bad thing. It's probably just how the data is. But anything, or especially a ribbon chart, which kind of makes you feel that there's continuality between everything, there's a connection between everything. If you suddenly have a disconnect, it rises an eyebrow, basically, right?
Hmm.
You try to avoid these situations. But from an initial point of view, I love how this page looks, and especially the storytelling that it's telling me. It allows me to also quickly understand how, based on different classifications, where it's coming, right? So, what are we focusing on right now on different countries? How's it coming in and coming out? So, very good. For the risk analysis, I would probably have less colors here because if we go through everything else, we have a few colors, not too many accent colors and everything. And if we go here, the main issue I have with this is the red in the middle.
Same here.
As much as everything else I would be okay with, but the red just
Mhm.
brings my attention to the chart and be like, is there a reason why it's red, right? Should I pay attention to it? Or
Mhm.
it's purely just my thought process.
I'm with you on this.
I would change the color for this, or have some sort of a pastel just for all of them or similar colors. Because remember, one thing that we're being taught a lot of the times is that different categories are always supposed to be different colors, so you can feel that there's a differentiation between them, right? That isn't necessarily always the case. The case is that there has to be differentiation if you're connecting that color with that category on all accounts, right? So that creates sort of a mindset that, okay, that color represents one thing. Whereas if you have charts like these, one of the things that we have in our visuals, not all of them, but some of them are starting to implement this, is so-called the base color. We have this on the donut chart, for example, where you have a source color and then lighter shades of that color, right? And that allows you to still create a differentiation, but you're not creating something that is very heavy to the eye, basically, right? Where you have to spend a lot of time trying to understand, does the color have any meaning? Is there any sort of story behind it, and so forth? So that's the only thing. Other than that, I think it's very, again, it's very clean, and this is what I appreciate about a lot of these reports this time. They're very clean and simple. You're not
Yes.
going into very complex overviews. Um, Anything else from your side?
Yes, before we wrap up with Crystal's report, can you please navigate between the pages so that people can see how the
Yeah.
purpose section is dynamic? I mean, changes according to the page. Yes, I love it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I also like the use of these little icons. So inside the donut charts, there are like just little icons to make it a little playful. And challenges like these are great ways of it's like a creative outlet. So kudos on this, Crystal. I love it.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And seeing how rapidly you're advancing your skills as well, Crystal, I'm pretty sure that the next report is probably going to blow our minds even more. But yeah, congratulations on getting into the top five. This is an amazing report, and now it's time to move to the next one. So the next report that has gotten itself into the top five comes
Hmm.
from Andreas Miguel Pratam. So congratulations to you, Andreas. Let's open
Wow.
up the report and take a closer look at it. For those of you who've been here before, you know what I'm gonna say about this, right? I'm a fan of dark themes. It's very biased, I know, but that doesn't give you any additional points. I can tell you that straight away, right? It's just my personal preference. Everything on my PC is on dark theme.
Okay.
I know in corporate world a lot of reports still have to be in light sort of variations because it's
Hmm.
just the most preferred one, but it's a personal thing. But, however, there are a lot of things in this report that I think have been done very neatly. And before I touch them, I wanted Lakshmi to give you the opportunity to tell us first what you thought about this report.
Yes. So I'm a light theme girly, but this report has my heart. I mean, you saw me say wow just by the look. So one thing what I generally see when it comes to dark theme is people are not able to adjust the colors and find the contrast between colors. But here it's beautiful. It's clear. I don't have to squint my eye or I don't have to keep guessing what's written. So I love it. Second, the layout is very creative and very simple. You see how like he has proper borders. I really like that. Choice of colors, perfect. I mean, not too harsh on the eyes, very balanced. And yeah, I mean, those are my initial thoughts.
Okay, definitely. My first impression was that, it sort of felt like, if I would be sort of like either an EMT person or a service manager who has to
Hmm.
look through different stuff, this feels like a handheld tablet where I can very
Hmm.
easily just go through tabs and focus on certain things, right? So I kind of like this approach. You separated the filtering panel, you separated also sort of a navigational panel, but for secondary type of information, and this is the primary information. So I really love that approach.
Yes.
What else I loved about this is the way on how you created these boxes. On the very first glance, and this is what I did initially as well, right? Every
Hmm.
single person who has used Power BI before is going to have a feeling, well, that's a slicer, right?
Yes.
So what I did first is I started to click on it,
Hmm.
which at first I thought like maybe something's not working or am I not using it correctly? But then I realized the way that this works is a more of a representation purpose to tell the
Yes.
story.
Hmm.
Because if we go into the filters, we can say that, for example, you can see these flags right here. So that's the states, that's the purchase history. So if I say that this is going to be with a previous purchase history and from Illinois, I'm going to close the view. These two are going to tell me what's filtered.
Yes.
Even if I add multiple states, it's going to still have both of them, right? So it's a storytelling element.
Hmm.
As a Power BI developer who works with a lot of reports, I would say initially it felt confusing, but I very quickly kind of liked the approach that you created there, right? And again, this is where that experience comes in, right? You play around with these things and you cater to the customer. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what I think about this. If this is something that your customers would love, this is what you create for them. And this is a very interesting approach on how you've done this. And the second thing is, and you're not forcing me to go back here to clear everything just to reset basically. I can just click on these axes, and these are
Hmm.
actually clear filter sections. So they're gonna clear these selections as well. So it's a very interesting approach that you've taken here. I'd say it's one of those cases where you have taken a lot of risk by creating something like this, but I think it kind of worked out.
Yes.
So definitely kudos to you. The second thing is, if you didn't notice this, as soon as I apply additional filters, it also tells me how many filters have I
Hmm.
applied. So those little touches really allow me to for kind of understand what exactly is happening here. The only thing from this experience that I felt I was missing is just a reset button. I
There
like
is
the
a
way,
clear all option, Ivis. So I think,
yeah,
yeah.
it's here, but from a
Oh, okay, okay,
purpose of
okay.
navigation, for example, if I drill down and I come
Hmm.
here, it's for the slicers. It's
Correct,
not
correct.
for the visuals. So in that case, I felt like, just having a quick reset here, not to force them to make that additional click to get to the reset.
Hmm.
Keep it simple, right? Keep it right at their hands. You can still have it here as well, but I would just have a copy of it right here, just to kind of allow them to do it from both views. But
Hmm.
again, that's my personal preference, and that's what I usually do with my reports. It doesn't mean that it's the best approach. Um,
Okay.
what
Also,
else?
just
Yeah,
a
go ahead.
quick thing. While you were playing with the filters, did any one of you notice the icon in the first in the gradient tab kept changing? So I think if you could put purchase history as no, and then choose state as maybe California and Illinois, you will see a different icon that pops up. Yes, maybe just give it a second to refresh.
So,
Is it still refreshing?
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it's
So
slow.
you see, yeah. So you see how the icon changed. So since the top satisfaction factor was ease of use, so I think there's an icon which tells it's easy to use. So I really like that little touch where the icons are dynamic according to the top satisfaction factor and the filters.
Oh, absolutely. Also the nice touch about the icons, I think, is that they have been adapted to match the theme. Right.
Hmm.
So what
Yes.
happens a lot of the times, people will just find random icons which have either a background. Best case scenario, you find an icon that doesn't have a background, but then you keep different colors. You always keep it over one single. This feels like it's part of the same thing, right? It
Yes.
changes, but it just fits in. So it's a
Yes.
very nice touch upon these sort of things.
Hmm.
Um, what else? The combo bar visual, also very good execution. I think this is one of the sort of comparisons that I like to utilize in my reports as well. The main reason
Hmm.
for this is because first of all, it allows you to save space, because
Hmm.
in having instead of having two columns right next to each other, you're
Mm.
utilizing one width, right? You're just showcasing how they compare to each other, and this comparison can be used for a lot of different things. Sure, this wouldn't be a great approach if you would have like five or six different colors. For those
Mm.
cases, just use a stack or a cluster or something completely different. But when it's like one or two, I think it's very well made and it tells you a good story about it. So
Yes.
that's a very nice touch. The info overview as well, good explanation for how
Mm.
different elements are being utilized. The only thing that, from this perspective, that I think might be a little bit heavy on the eye is because you have a little bit of a background, but I would make
Hmm.
the background a little bit less transparent.
Hmm.
Because right now, these whites and the one that's in the background, they're very close to each other. So on a very first view, it kind of feels a bit too much, right? So I would make a little bit more of a distinguishment between the info overlay and the background. I
Hmm.
like how it's implemented, but I would just like a little bit more contrast on it. If we go to the loyalty page, again, the one thing that I very appreciate is if we go through different tabs quickly, you can see the layout. And if I come to a different one, you're always keeping it very close to what it was previously. So the
Yes.
user kind of knows how to move between these things. Andrea just mentioned as well, if I select more than three states, let's do that. Let's go for four. It's going to tell you how many states have been selected. So see,
Hmm.
a little attention to little details. So, but yeah, going through these, going through different, what I appreciate is, of course, as well, same color everywhere. If you're utilizing the same approach, if you're referencing the same category, and this is what I mentioned previously about the color, right? If you create something that you're telling that the category has an association with a color, make sure that it's always going to be the same. This allows the user to tell that story and to understand what's happening. Uh, the only small little thing that I would do this, the only reason why I noticed this, I can tell you straight away, is because we just recently finished one of the reports where this was a requirement. We were working with high, low, and medium, the order of things.
Hmm.
So either you start from one end or the other, but again, similar to how we were talking about the age groups,
Yes.
create sort of a logical order of things, right? So low, medium, high, high, medium, low.
Hmm.
Right now it's high, low, medium. Funny enough, this also can work for a lot of situations, and I can tell you why. If you're working, for example, in something like a support queue or in sales, even let's say high potential, low potential, medium ones are usually the ones that kind of resolve themselves. Whereas high or low, you want to understand, okay, why was it high importance, first of all, or why was it low importance? So are we getting a low importance for what reason, right? I know it's not related to this one, but just as an example.
Hmm.
So those different variations might work, but I would probably, for this one, when it comes to customer loyalty, I would go with high, medium, low, because you want to understand um, sort of the levels or tiers of loyalty based on that sort of order. You want to understand who are the most loyal customers, the medium, the least loyal customers. Well, they're usually just go buyers, right? They show up, they do something, and they disappear. Spending a lot of time on those and not very efficient. So spend a lot more time on those who are coming back and love the product and the system that you created. For this page, Lakshmi, any comments from your side?
Yes, I really like the small detail that has been added in between I mean, in the center of the donut chart. I mean, instead of keeping it empty, it is good that he added an extra detail element. And when you drill through and play around with the visuals, that changes as well. So that's a good touch to this page.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Remember, every single part is the real estate that you just have. When it comes to report development,
Mm.
real estate or the space is the most precious resource that you have. You don't have
Yes.
infinite amount of it. Sure, you could theoretically say that, hey, my page is going to be in a port review and then there's going to be scrolling down and a lot of width and everything like that, right? But when you have everything in just a single screen, no scrolls, no anything, you have to figure out how to make things work. And this is a good way on how you can kind of connect that KPI also to this metric. So it's a very nice touch as well. And then, of course, the detail page. Now, I like it. The main reason why I like detailed pages to be something that you have at the end is, and I think we mentioned this in other webinars as well. The primary thing is that as much as I love interactive reports, I think we're still in a stage where there's still a lot of pushback from general audience.
Hmm.
So having like something like a detail page allows you to kind of find that middle ground in a sense, right? You're giving them an interactive report which has a lot of charts and everything, but for those who love spreadsheets, they have something that they're more familiar with.
Yes, that's true.
And for this one as well, the little eye icon that explains, okay, what it actually focuses on, it's a nice little touch.
Yes, and just to add something here,
Yeah,
so
sure.
this is something that I've started doing recently. Is whenever I have like a detailed page with a long table with a lot of stuff into it, I all just trying to use this text slicer. I mean, I know that it's still under preview, but it's a
Mhm.
good way of using a text slicer. So say I just want to directly look for New York. If I do not have it in the filter, it's easy for me to use the text slicer to go ahead and filter it according to New York. So that's something that I've been doing. Just wanted to share.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Because as much as we love native slicers or the previous version of it, we all know how well hidden the search function is within it.
Yes, so true.
I think I don't know. I think I found the search function purely by accident. I was trying to figure
Oh,
out what was happening in a different scenario, and through the forum posts, I just found somebody mentioned, "Hey, by the way, you can do this," and I'm like, "There's
yes.
no way you can do that."
Oh. Also, just want to add one more quick thing here.
Yeah,
Remember, I was telling how, so with the page navigations, I really like how Andreas used an icon along with the text. So it's
yeah,
it's it's like a detailed, I mean, an icon along with detail. So I don't have to guess what it is. And this is something like I also do on in my reports. So that's something which really stands out here.
yeah, definitely. Because for
Yeah.
navigation, remember, guys, there's just a lot of different things that you can do. You can keep it just simply as an icon.
Hmm.
Remember, buttons themselves have different states. So, what
Hmm.
we've seen as well is some cases people create, for example, just to kind of save space a little bit, they create a button that looks like an icon on the initial
Hmm.
view on a default state. But when you hover over it, it kind of expands and tells you what it is. Feels
Hmm.
more like a website, for example. Every
Yes.
single one of these approaches has its pros and cons, right? You always have to weigh them out and see, okay, which is the one that the customer loves the most? Which one makes more sense?
Hmm.
So definitely love that. But yeah, an amazing report, very simple to navigate, very easy to use. Kudos, Andreas, for doing a very good job. All right, let's go to the next one.
Hmm.
So the next, I was about to say next customer, but not really. The next report that has gotten into the top five comes
Hmm.
from Nina Ikbal. So congratulations, Nina. Let's open up the report and take a closer look
Yes.
at it.
Hmm.
Now, for this one, as much as I love dark themes, I would say I feel that this is a little bit too dark. One reason for this is I feel that there isn't enough contrast,
Yes.
especially for the dark purple. The
Hmm.
light purple kind of stands out, you can clearly see it, but like I said, the dark purple and taking into consideration different screen brightnesses and everything, saturations and so forth, that color might become slightly invisible.
Yes.
Or imagine if you're trying to view this report in a bright daylight when there's sunshine on your screen, right? This is going to start to become almost invisible.
Hmm.
So, first point of view, I love the simplicity of the report, the way it lays out, but I would probably keep this color and the secondary color, make it a little bit, even just a little bit brighter,
Hmm.
because I think that would work as well.
Yes. Agreed.
So, that goes for that. What else?
Yes. One thing I would like to add.
Yeah, sure.
So when I initially took a look at this report, I really liked how it was divided. I mean, it was organized. It took me a couple of minutes to understand that the left side, so high frequency shoppers, so all these visuals belong to the high frequency shoppers, and all these belong to the moderate frequency. So, like you were talking about the Z format. So, when I started looking at Z format, the first thing that came to my mind is why are visuals getting repeated? So the grouping could have been little better. So that, I mean, I would have liked, say, the high frequency shoppers grouped together and the moderate frequency shoppers together, grouped together, to avoid that little confusion that I had. It could just be me, but that was like my initial thought.
No, no, I totally agree with you. What I probably would have done is something
Hmm.
similar to, as I mentioned, for the titles and subtitles. I would keep this as one massive shape, basically, to separate the two
Yes.
groups, and then
Yes.
create little separation columns or bars, or do whatever you want with them. But create a separation within a block, because right now
Hmm.
it feels like these are six different elements.
Hmm.
Once you kind of read through them, you're like, okay, one side belongs to one thing, the other belongs to the other one. So, purely from a visual perspective, you always want to keep those things that are together collectively in a single group.
Yes.
And again, these things that were mentioned, for example, creating that group, what? It takes a couple of minutes, right? Just create
Hmm.
another shape, have an overall,
Hmm.
create some typical lines as a separation, you're done. But yeah, that's one of the things. Um, the other thing is, for the top three, for example, for top satisfaction factors per
Hmm.
gender,
Hmm.
this is a tricky title. The reason for this is because the way I read through it is that there is going to be top three satisfaction factors per gender.
Oh,
So what I would have been expecting is that basically there would be two columns or two groups, one for
female and
male, one for me
hmm.
female,
Hmm. Hmm.
that show me those separate ones. Because right now these are the top three based on overall,
Right.
but
Right.
separated by gender.
Yes.
So it's
Makes
it's a
sense.
it's a play of words, but it's one of the things that I just noticed, because one thing that I do is I read through the titles and I try to understand, okay, what the report is
Hmm.
about, what I'm going to be looking into. So as soon as I said per gender, I was like, this doesn't seem like per gender, because this is, for example, if we go just purely by value, right? This is two, this is one, this is five, so the order doesn't make any
Hmm.
sense. But if you go through the total numbers, they're like, ah, okay. But again, it's one of those little things that we can easily correct just by switching per to by, and that's it.
Hmm. Yes.
Then the
Yes.
chart is showcasing exactly what you're doing. So yeah, going through these little things is, I know that sometimes it feels, guys, that we're nitpicky, but that's what we're here for, right?
Yes.
But yeah, that's the one thing that I would do. Whenever I played around with it, you can see that there
Mm-hmm.
is cross chart filtering. So it allows me to, and this is the part where you mentioned as well, right? Once I start to play with this, I start to notice, okay, so these charts don't interact with anything that's on this side, so they're
Hmm.
completely separate. So now
Hmm.
you feel that separation, and the reason why I felt that, okay, they should be separated as just two groups rather than six
Yes.
different blocks.
Right. But something I really like in this report is the use of labels. So, I mean, everything is properly labeled with the white text, good
Yeah.
contrast for the labels. That's really good. Uh, but one thing that I would have done a little different is, you see, play with the states of the buttons. So, like you mentioned about the colors, so only when I
Hmm.
hover over the button, I get that feel that it's a button. I think it's just because of the selected background color that I'm not able to see it distinctively, or is it just my screen? I'm not sure. A little play around the states of the buttons would have been great.
Yeah. And this is also one of those cases where, for example, if I click on it, you can see that it feels like it's even a little bit out of the original form,
Yes,
that it's not
yes.
fully formatted. It feels like it. So
Hmm.
the one thing that I can always recommend you guys to try out is, don't forget that Power BI Desktop is just one of the environments where this report is going to be looked at. One thing that you can definitely do, and this is also why we encourage you to submit the reports to get the feedback first and not trying to just submit on the last day, right? Whenever you publish the report into services, even though it's exactly the same report, for whatever reason, you start to play around with it slightly differently.
Hmm.
So, one thing that I usually do for my reports as well is, on the Power BI desktop, I always treat it purely as a development environment. This is not where I'm going to be going through the buttons and everything. I do all the technical stuff. I create bookmarks, I assign the bookmarks and everything, but I really start to play around with them in the services. because the main thing that I'm trying to capture there is, for example, when it comes to, let's say, bookmarks or navigation, you have to always remember that you need to hold down control. Otherwise, it's not going to get activated. So,
Hmm.
but that's the step that an end user is not going to be taking. So, by publishing it to services, you're playing around with the report that the end user is going to be using. So, this is one of the things that I would have done to just play around with this a bit more and
Hmm.
see if everything still feels good and very easy to understand.
Hmm.
The background colors and colors of the page navigation could have been done slightly differently to make it more prominent, to make it feel like a button. But other than that, I think it's good. Uh,
Yes.
the filters for these ones, I feel it lacks a little bit of contrast again, and I would probably make them with a higher font size.
Hmm.
It fits nice and neatly, but because of the let's say the slimness of the text in a sense, right? It can become very tricky to read these.
Yes.
But other than that, the reset is there, allows me to reset everything. You have two different pages. On the second page, you're going into more detailed analysis. What I mean by detailed analysis, as soon as there's a table, 90% of the people are going to tell you that this is the detailed analysis. You can tell me whatever you want. This is just what it is. But yeah,
Yes.
I kind of like the overall feeling of it. And I have really sort of played around with it. And I feel like this feels like it isn't sort of an overview, right, for those
Mhm.
two groups of customers. And then for the loyalty analysis, this feels like a more analytical part where you have these little histograms showcasing different categories, the different splits. The one thing that I probably wouldn't not have done is this part right here. The field parameters are good, that's all good, but I wouldn't round the corners. The
Hmm.
main reason for this, if you haven't done it here, don't do it here.
Hmm.
Keep the feeling consistent across the board. But it again, it's a very small little thing that can easily be fixed. Go into the formatting settings and remove the rounding, right? It's not the end of the world. So these all can be easily fixed. I don't know. Anything else from your side?
I mean, I really like the additional histogram details that has been added into the KPI charts. But a quick thing is when you were switching between satisfaction and loyalty pages, so the KPIs on the top, the size was different. So here, if you see high frequency shoppers 48, the sizes are different, and suddenly there
Hmm.
has been a switch on the size. And I think even Ankan in the comments mentioned that. So that felt a little odd for a couple of seconds, but I think the size was increased just to make sure that the histogram fit in. And I mean, I'm okay with it, but just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, yeah, true. And
Hmm.
also something that you mentioned for example, for this part where the value labels are visible in every single part. If we go here, for some of these you have labels, and then for
Yeah.
some you don't, even though it's the same column count,
Yes.
right? So just
Yes.
small little details, because trust me, the one thing that's going to happen is we're pointing these out because at the end of the day, when the end customer is going to be looking at them, they're also going to be looking at that consistency.
Hmm.
And whenever you miss these little points, it might not be big deal for you because you can fix it in like a minute or two. For them, it's that first impression moment. And you can only create first impression once. So always pay
Yes.
attention to these little details. Like I said, give it to somebody else to go through because they're gonna notice it. If you work too long with a single report, you know what to do with it, you know how it works and everything, but you miss all these little details because you're focused on the
Yes.
big picture, right? Are the measures
Yeah.
correct? Are the values shown correctly and so forth? Whereas somebody who doesn't have any connection to that, he's just gonna be playing around, be like, huh, interesting. So why is this there but not here? And he's gonna notice these sort of things. So it's a very good
Yes.
practice to kind of go through.
Before we wrap up, I just have
Yeah.
one more thing to say. The table section, I really like the usage of the red and green, although I think the red contrast is a little bit off, but it's a good way of highlighting that this area needs focus. So I really like differentiating that this has been doing good, but this needs focus. So that's good. I really like that.
Yeah, and I kind of like that. I know I mentioned this before, right? But how they focused on the high loyalty and low loyalty. The medium,
Yes.
they're kind of okay. With I'm gonna focus on these two.
Yes.
But yeah, overall, very good report. Definitely kudos to you for this one. And I think Alexandra mentioned this to us. This is
Hmm.
uh, the first submission. So to have the first submission
Perfect.
already in the top five,
Good.
massive kudos.
Absolutely.
All right, last but not least, the final submission that has gotten itself into the top five comes from
Mm.
Agbara Dixon Okaloyo. So,
Mm.
congratulations. Let's open up the report and take a closer look at it. So, for this one, before we move on even to anything else, the one thing that I want to comment on is the approach of trying out new things. And what I
Mhm.
mean by this, Agbada has been a participant since almost, I think, one of the first challenges that we ever hosted. And every
Wow.
single time he tries out something different. So,
Mm.
one thing that he's done here is this approach with the bar charts. So, instead of just having, for example, a blank space here or a lot of white space, he's actually utilized the principle of having two different series and to create a 100% stacked column chart, which
Yes.
I think kind of fits visually very nicely because it tells me what is the max where it's
Mm.
supposed to get to. And then I have sort of a reference value. So, how far away on that scale am I? So, I think it's a very nice little touch. So, that's one part of it. If we go to, I think it was this page. Yeah, this one as well. This approach is also something very interesting. And the best part about this is the way and how this is being treated is if I go, for example, for a particular distribution of satisfaction factor, not this one, where it was, oh, this one, for the table. So if I
Mm.
select a loyalty level, it gets fully filled.
Oh, okay.
So instead of, keeping just a small little bar within that, what happens
Hmm.
is you have two values that are being referenced based on the context, and you just fill it up. So it feel kind of fits nice and neatly, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't create a lot of unnecessary space if I start to filter out things. I think it's a very nice little sort of play on what the visual is capable of. So massive kudos for you for just trying out new stuff first of all. Other than that, the first feeling about the report is I would probably play around a bit more with the layout. And what I mean by this, I feel that it lacks a bit of contrast between the background and the visuals themselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
Either have a very thin border around it or create a slight shadow effect or anything, but just to kind of make it a little bit more prominent. Again, it might just be my screen, but the difference between these two is almost indistinguishable, at least for me, right?
No, I'm with you on this.
It is there, but it's so close that it might cause issues.
Yes, yes.
What else? For these two charts, I think they're okay. I'm not a massive fan of them,
Hmm.
but I think they kind of tell the story of how much passive shoppers will to have in total in comparison to everything else. 'Cause if you look at it, it might as well be just a donut chart with those three different values, right? Passives, loyalists, and all the others, and then just have a single chart that shows you that. Because you could have detail labels, so the same information would be shown. Because these are never going to be over 100, so it means
Hmm.
that okay, a donut chart might work on it. If you have more than 100% passive shoppers or loyalists, probably something wrong with the data. We would all love to have more than 100% loyalists, but it is what it is, right?
Yes.
The little filter here on the top, very simple. The little overlay as well explains how to utilize the report, so that's all good. If I filter something out, there's a reset button. Always gonna appreciate a quick little reset.
Hmm.
Helps me to just start all over again. Uh, your first impressions about this one?
I really, so like I said, light girl, light theme girly. So I liked it in the first view. My only thoughts were the blue. The blue, I found it a little too bright. So I mean, it's
Hmm.
it's good for me, but I don't know. Like say with people with visual impurities, might feel a little bit off with that uh, bright blue.
Hmm.
Next, what I felt is, so even if we ignore that color, you see how the donut chart has a different two shades of completely different blues. Uh,
Yeah,
the 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 below
this one, yeah.
the customer distribution by gender. So I mean, a little. I felt it was a little off, and I also had that point. So you see, every visual has like a white background with rounded corners. but only when you like get into the report real close, you are able to distinguish that, oh, all the visuals have rounded corners. So a little contrast between the visual border and the report border would have been great.
Definitely.
And yeah, and like I always say, the sorting order of high, medium, low. I mean, I would have really preferred either high, medium, low, or low, medium, high.
Yeah, it's a small little thing, but when it comes to storytelling, it just helps you to have some sort of order which people are familiar with.
Yes, yes, yes.
Because I can guarantee
And
you. Yeah, go ahead.
uh-huh. And one thing also like is, so I like the navigation that you have icons here, but when I hover over it, I do not see any tooltips. I can figure out what the pages when I look into the subtitle below the title of the report, but there are no tooltips for me to guide what exactly this page is going to be about. So that was a little off for me. I would have really appreciated that. But yeah, overall I like this visual. So blues and purples are my favorite, so I'm going to be a little partial here. So I really liked it. One more thing that I would just like to mention is on the geographic insights. So when you say geographic insights, something that comes into my mind is geography. So it's going to be states, cities, province, regions, etc. But when I see the slice of purchase history, it threw me off a little bit, because if you're talking about geographic insights, I would like to maybe filter it according to, say, if I'm looking for a particular state or a particular country, I would like one or two slices on that. I am not sure if there are more. No, there are no slices. I mean, just an extra couple of slices regarding the geographical region would have been great.
Yeah, because the one thing that I think kind of gets transferred a lot is I'm talking about the same thing here. Sure, it's a different value, but that could have
Hmm.
been a field parameter as well. And the same thing around here, right?
Hmm.
You're putting the map basically in two different variations with different values, but the same type of information. I know when it comes to like Lakshmi mentioned, for example, when you have geographic analysis, I know you don't want to necessarily, but you have to create a slicer that allows you to pinpoint an exact location.
Yes.
Sure, in a sense, it might break everything because, as well, if I filter out just a particular city, right, the map comes very close. I only have partial KPIs and things like that. But what it allows you to do very quickly as well is I can very quickly open up the slicer, just type in the city or the county or whatever it is to look for, find it, keep moving on. That's it.
Yes.
Whereas if it's going to be a combo bar chart, remember, for example, the number of cities might increase. So suddenly I have either a scroll bar or I have to move up and down to try to find one. And you want to keep it very simple for the user to find the main things that you have defined in the subtitles or the page names, right? I'm totally on board with the lack of tooltips. That's something that I would definitely would want to have here, or even a subtext right here, right? Just give me
Yes.
something that allows me to understand what it's going to be all about.
Hmm.
Because as much as I love icons, icons without an explanation are just an image,
Correct.
right? So you want to give them something that allows them to understand, okay, what's going to happen. Because these
Yes.
two, it's a little bit more understandable, right? A
Hmm.
question
Hmm.
mark typically means something that's going to give you some sort of help. Cool. I'm on board with that. The
Hmm.
refresh button or reload button kind of puts into your mind that something's going to start over. So
Hmm.
you would kind of guess it that that's some sort of a refresh, right? But you can see the tooltips here as well are the typical ones, the default ones. Oh no,
Also, I would
sorry,
like to
sorry.
add
It
something
was
here. Yeah.
actually, yeah, it was changed. I was so used to seeing control plus click to being a default one that I didn't even
Oh.
notice this.
Yes. And while we're on it, on the buttons, so you see that logout option there on the bottom
Yeah.
left. I kept clicking it. I was like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? So I think he just wanted to get a modern UI look and feel. But I mean, I would have completely avoided that logout button, logout text and the button from the report.
Yeah, because the one thing that we already mentioned, guys, remember, right? You don't need to put on elements that don't have any purpose. Sure,
Correct.
if it would be just a concept of design, keep it there. That's all fine. But if it's this sort of report where this doesn't do really anything, then why did you add it?
Hmm.
It's a little bit different if you have, for example, like a profile icon here showcasing, for example, hey Ivis, right? You're looking currently at this and for. I get that gives me a
Hmm.
context that I'm the user, I'm viewing it, and so forth. But a logout button that doesn't do anything, it doesn't really provide any value.
Yes.
And not even that, it feels like it's off centered. Everything
Yeah.
is in the center. This one feels like
Hmm.
it's pushed a little bit to the corner. But
Right.
overall, the feeling that I had about this is it's a very simple report. That's one
Hmm.
thing. It's not going into too many details. Sure, I
Hmm.
would play around with the dimensions a bit more on different pages, but the one thing that I can comment on this one, like I said, is just the play on different visuals on what is being achieved. And I think at the end of the day, guys, you have to also understand that this is what these community events are all about, right?
Yes.
This is somewhere where you can play around with things, see how things are created, see what else you can do with this. Because once you start creating reports in your professional work, or if you're a consultant or something, you're most of the time going to be working with very similar data sets.
Hmm.
And these sort of challenges is an environment where you're just thrown outside of your comfort zone with a random data set, no additional help. Well, maybe some guidelines on, well, you could look at this, and that, but it's your freedom of creativity.
Yes.
So it's also one
Agree.
of the things that we look into these reports to see, okay, has there been anything sort of a little bit outside of the box when it comes to
Hmm.
visualizations?
Hmm.
But yeah, those are the top five submissions. I know we're running a little bit over time, as always. I like to talk much. I know it's my problem. But I'm gonna quickly hide the screen. I'm gonna
Mhm.
find the winner. Manage
Mhm.
okay, just making sure, because otherwise don't want to look like a complete dum dum. Hey, it has happened before, so finding the right screen, sharing it. All right, should be going live in just a second. So the winner for this month's challenge is. Let's go.
Is drum rolls.
The magic finger's not working. Andreas Mifal
Woo!
Pratma. Congratulations to you. Yeah,
Congratulations.
overall, we feel that you put a lot of effort and time into this report, a lot of attention to just little details when it comes to how the visuals were executed, how the slicers were executed, and overall, it's just a very simple report that can be easily be navigated. Few little touches, and I feel that this would be truly amazing.
Absolutely. And just one thing from my side. First, congratulations to the winners. And just want to tell two takeaways that I got from all the judging and comments that we did.
Mhm.
One is always consider your reports like a storybook. So you are always going to read the storybook from top to bottom, and you're going to flip pages from left to right. I mean, you go to switch swap pages. So keep that in mind when you create your reports. And two, like Evis mentioned, is if it's not going to add value to your report, do not add it to your report, like the quick logout button, or say the menu text along with the hamburger icon. If it's not going to do anything on your reports, don't do it. So these are my two takeaways. I would like to know in the comments what you people took away from this discussion. And yeah, that's pretty much I wanted to share.
Absolutely. Because at the end of the day, right, as long as you take something valuable out of this, it's a good webinar. If you all go
Hmm.
away from this not learning or seeing anything interesting, well, we kind of suck at our job. That's the main takeaway. But yeah, we do have one question that I want to quickly cover, Lakshmi. If you have 2 more minutes, and then we can sign off.
Yep.
So, Alexandra, can you push that question live? This one, yeah. So, how to achieve the filter seems like a pop up. Basically, it's a play on bookmarks and different elements. Essentially, what you do is in these cases, you created most likely just a shape. Within that shape, you created a couple of slicers. So, for example, I'm going to create one or two, doesn't really matter. I don't know, let's say product. The data is going to be completely different from what you had there. This is just a test data set that I was using for debugging something. So, something like this, right? You have three different elements. Now, to make sure that there is also something in the background, let's add a timeline that has a date hierarchy. just so to kind of create a feeling of an overlay, right? There's going to be a massive chart in the back. There we go. So now we have all those elements. In order to create that particular feeling of a pop-up, you have to first realize that there's selection panel, which shows you the order of elements and also allows you to understand what's where. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that the panel itself is in front of the visuals.
Hmm.
The second thing is I could group them, and I would probably recommend to do this because once you're working with bookmarks, it's going to be a lot easier to work with a group than separate elements.
Yes.
Now, what I do afterwards is I create two bookmarks. The way I do it, I first create how many bookmarks I need, and then I update the states. It
Mhm.
differs on different people how they do it. So in this case, I'm gonna call one on, one is gonna be off because I only have two bookmarks off. And come on, typo on a three-letter word, really? Next part, you want to make sure that you're disabling data because when you're creating pop-ups, you don't want them to reset a particular data state. So you're
Mhm.
resetting these data parts. And the next part is you're working with selected visuals and not all of the visuals. The reason for this again is because whenever you're having a bookmark with all visuals taken into account, it has to read through all of them to make sure that none of the things have changed. When you're working only with a selected visual group, it only affects that little group. So now when I have everything set on selected visuals, the data has been disabled. All I'm going to do is make sure, read this correctly, selected. I select the group that I want to work with. Currently it's visible, so this is on state. I hide it, it's unselected. I select it and I update the off state.
Hmm.
So afterwards, just play around with different bookmarks and we can see I messed something up. Happens even to the best of us, as you can see. But you update the two states and this is your
Hmm.
pop up menu. Then afterwards, if you want to add this as a button, again, just add a simple blank button or with an element, doesn't really matter. I'm going to say that this is going to be an action item and it's going to call on. And there's going to be one more, for example, right here that's going to say close.
Close. Hmm.
And that's it. You just play around with elements and bookmarks.
Yes. That
The
was
one
quick.
thing that, oh, I built too many of these. I don't want to talk about it. But the one thing definitely that I would recommend is for anybody who's starting off with Power BI, for example, take your time and learn about bookmarks. They seem
Hmm.
very simple, but there's actually so many things that you can do with them. It's crazy. But yeah, that's a simple explanation of it. Simple.
Yes. Perfect.
All right. Other than that, I hope that every single one of you had an amazing time and you learned something new from it. Lakshmi, massive thank you for joining us today. I hope that was
Thank you.
interesting and fun for you as well.
Absolutely, it was.
Then what we're going to do is call you on for the next one. So mark your words.
Yes, I am in.
But yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for joining us. Have an amazing rest of the day, and I'll see you in the next workshop.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye bye.